How are you all doing? I've got my friend Nick from Claret Booze with me to discuss things. Well, I'll say all things West Ham, all things David Moyes and West Ham as well. Nick, I've seen one of your tweets. Is it still called tweets, even though it's called X now? What is it?
I refuse to call. You can't. What are you supposed to call them?
X.
It's Twitter to me. It will always be Twitter. It's a tweet.
I've seen your tweet suggesting that you want the season over with already. That you're already that bored that you're ready for the end of it. And I agree with a lot of things you say, and I disagree with some things you say. This is possibly the biggest thing I've disagreed with. From what you've ever tweeted or ever said in a video, this is the one thing I thought, no, I cannot agree with that whatsoever. So explain yourself, please.
I'm impatient. I've kind of, we all talk to people. We've kind of had a little bit of insight, all of us, into what's round the corner. I mean, there's no names, but there's hints, there's tips. We know from the academy. Tim Schneider, when he first came in, he works with Mark Noble. There's a bit of a restructuring going on with Kenny Brown and Steve Potts. And they've implemented, usually what happens is a philosophy of the team is set at the first team and then all of the youth teams play the same way. But because of David Moyes, we've had to do it in reverse. And the new style that has been implemented in terms of a philosophy is a 3-4-3 that's being played throughout the academy. And it's a very attacking 3-4-3 as well. So with two wing-backs and inside forwards, it's amazing. So that is kind of the philosophy that's been laid moving forwards, which is never something we're going to realise under David Moyes. And listen. When I watch the games, when we're especially when we're in knockout competitions, because one thing that I do accept, David Moyes, he's good at is knockout football. So we've seen it against Arsenal. We saw it in the cup last year. So we are still in competition. So from that respect, from the cup, yes, it's great. I'm just impatient and I can't wait to get started on the new project. Is what I'm trying to say. So. I know we scraped past Nottingham Forest, but it was turgid leading up to that. The football's, I hate the football. The football is dull. It kills me. And I just can't wait for the next stage, is what I was trying to say, Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If I could click my fingers now and go to the summer, I would. If he's here to the end of the year, I literally would. I'd go bang.
I wouldn't, because I think there's a lot to be played, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to win as well and have a successful season. And I always argue success can be measured in many different ways, and that's why under previous managers prior to David Moyes, I've always thought this season can be a success if we integrate some of the youth players, although we might finish mid-table. But if we've got 3 players from the academy into the first team throughout that season, that's a success on its own. It doesn't always have to be results-based, but in regards to David Moyes being a success, it does come down to one thing, and that is results, because it is integrating the players from the academy.
There's nothing else.
It's not the playing style. It's down to cold, hard results. What does it say at paper? And I know football isn't played on paper, but I think Moyes needs to be judged on paper in regards for it to be deemed a success, because if you start looking at the finer detail, that's when you start to think, okay, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
And I think, we're in the Carabao Cup. I appreciate we've got the most difficult game we could have got, which is Liverpool away. But when we played Liverpool earlier this season, I thought we gave them a game. We got beat, which is fine. But I do think on a one-off game, you just never know. I think they've got Arsenal and Man United either side of our cup game as well. And they're in a title race. They are... I still think Liverpool could.
They've got the same problem. They've got the 3-4 game, the 3-4 day gap problem as what we have. The same problem. Yeah.
So Crystal Palace have an advantage over us when we go to play them. Liverpool do not in the Carabao Cups. You're right. They've got that. So I'm hopeful. I'm actually hopeful that we can beat Liverpool. I might be a bit naive, maybe a bit stupid, but I just think that we can maybe do it. In regards to the Europa League, well, we're pretty much guaranteed knockout football. Well, we are guaranteed some form of European knockout football, whether it's the Conference League, the playoff in the Europa League, or straight into the last 16. That remains to be seen. But we're guaranteed European football after the new year. I'm excited for it. Whichever one it is, bring it on. Obviously, there's really good teams in Europa League. There's better teams than us. But I would have said that back when we got to the semi-final Europa League, Nick, when I looked at it and thought, Lyon, Sevilla, all these teams, Barcelona. I thought, no, I don't fancy. We're never going to do anything with that. Well, we got to the semi-finals, and I still don't think we got a fair crack at that semis against Frankfurt, conceding so early, then Creswell getting sent off. We never got a fair crack at it. But we got to the semis, I think, well, actually, while I look at the Europa League this year, I think, there's some bloody good teams, and obviously teams will drop down from the Champions League. I still think, well, actually, is it any different to a couple of years ago? Not really. We've got better as well. We've got more experienced at European football. We got better at playing European football, and we've got better players. The squad today is better than it was. The squad that played Frankfurt a couple of years ago, this team today is better. In my opinion, obviously some players have deteriorated. Antonio's not as good as he was when we played Frankfurt a couple of years ago, for example.
I'm not sure that it is better.
Do you not?
No. I know we struggled last year. I know we had a 35-game relegation battle with Declan Rice, but when you look at the fact that we've brought in, we lost Rice, so we had to restructure our midfield. And the way I pictured this when Alvarez came in was going to be Alvarez, Paqueta, and someone else. But if it's Souček, that's fine. I thought Alvarez, Souček and Paqueta would be fine. But Souček's an ever-present in the David Moyes team. He's never, ever going to be dropped. So forget about Souček. Let's talk about the two people that have to babysit him until he heads a ball in from a corner. Because that's effectively what he does. The two players, we've gone from Declan Rice and Lucas Paqueta in the middle of the park to James Ward-Prowse and Alvarez. Now, I think that's such a downgrade because James Ward-Prowse, as good as he is, as much of a specialist that he is, I don't think he's a great central midfielder, especially when you got him in there with Souček. I don't think he's mobile, he's not physical, he's not defensively aware. Bizarrely, when he's deep, he doesn't use his passing range at all. It's just sideways and backwards. He's very, very safe. I don't think he helps you control the game in any way. And out of possession, those two are a nightmare. They are. Souček and Ward-Prowse are a nightmare. So we are definitively weaker in the middle of the park. And the old adage is, if you lose a midfield, you lose a game. And I'm concerned that this is going to carry on. Why he's taken Paqueta out of the middle as well, I'll never know. Because I think James Ward-Prowse, Paqueta and Alvarez would work. Or Paqueta. But it's that central midfield. I think moving forwards, though, you're looking, we haven't got Pique Antonio anymore. That's gone. We're still reliant on him, even though he's injured. Jared Bowen's as good now as he's getting better.
He's better than he was last season.
But he's always been good. He's always been good. So Bowen's always been good. We've got less of a Benny. Benny's no good this season. He don't seem to be. Cornet's never been available or any good. So I don't really see, apart from Emerson replacing Cresswell. And it depends on the Cresswell you're talking about, because I'm a bit of a Cresswell fan. So if you're talking about Cresswell, peak Cresswell, is he that much of an improvement? And I think you got a worse Soufal. So where are we better? Is my question to you. Kudus is a good addition. He's a good addition, but that is, do you know what I mean? Though, on the whole, as a squad. And the thing is, I don't think we've found where we can use Kudus yet, because I don't think he's a right winger. I don't think he does half the tracking back that is necessary of a right winger when you've got Vladimir Soufal playing. I think that's why he was so exposed against Nottingham Forest. Elanga almost had a free run at him the majority of the time, and that's why we saw, I think it was in the second half, you started seeing Kudus focusing more on sort of defensive duties.
If you get a better right back, though, then...
I know, but that's always been kind of... That's why Bowen's amazing, really, because it doesn't seem to affect his offensive play. He can do the defensive dirty work. And then all of a sudden, like that, he's breaking through. He's up and down. He's got an engine. And also, I don't think Kudus is a winger. I think he's a central player. I think Kudus was signed to replace Paqueta, but Paqueta never went. Yeah,
I agree with that, but I do agree with that notion. I think it's almost like get Kudus in now. I mean, this is why the sign of Steiden should be crucial, which is succession plan, essentially. We'll get Kudus in. What happens if we don't sell Paqueta? Great, we've got them both for a year.
Yeah.
So when Paqueta does go next summer, Kudus is already settled in at West Ham. We don't have that bedding in period. It's done. He's bedded in whilst not playing under the pressure of you are the replacement for Lucas Paqueta. Big shoes to fill. What can you do? A bit like Edson Alvarez. He's come in to replace Declan Rice. Can you do it? And he has, and his attitude's spot on. I do think, comparing this squad to last season's, I do think Paqueta's better, though. And long term, I'd like to see him move centrally. I think he's more impactful. The thing is, let's say on the left, he's not really a left winger. He's doesn't stay. He moves. He drifts. Right. He doesn't play out there. He goes wandering, and it's almost like a free role for him. It's just on paper he's out on the left, and I think he's a massive upgrade on side Benrahma.
But I just think you're missing the benefit of what he offers you in the middle of the park. I mean, for me, I don't know. How do you envisage a fully functional central midfield? If you're going to go for a three, for me, I think you do need you need flair, you need pace, you need power, you need defensive solidity. See, talking about Edson Alvarez, I think Edson Alvarez, maybe for the next manager who plays, if we play in a more progressive way, he might be more suited. But I think I've only seen him stop and shield the backline once and sit in that CDM role once, and that was against Brighton. I haven't really seen that since. He's a bit of a marauder. You know, he seems to kind of he just disappears up the pitch. He sort of runs with the ball, and I don't think, and that might be what sucks James Ward-Prowse back in. I don't know, because we just need someone to sit and be a CDM. I thought that's what we were signing with Alvarez, and I like him. And like I say, I think he's a brilliant player, but positionally, he's not giving us the sort of cover that I thought he would give us. Is what I'm trying to say.
I think he has in some games, not all of them. I think at the start of the season, sort of before the previous international break. So we've had 3 now, haven't we? So when he first came in, I think he was playing sort of defensive midfield with Ward-Prowse and Souček ahead of him. It was almost like a 4-1-4-1. If we can agree to call it that without getting into the specifics of what everyone does.
It was a 6 with 2 8s. It was a 6 with 2 8s, wasn't it? It was,
yes.
Yeah.
So we had that, and that was working. I thought Souček was playing well, but Ward-Prowse was playing well, and I thought Alvarez was playing well. And then for whatever reason, Moyes broke it up a little bit and started playing almost like a double pivot, and Souček was the one going forward, and it worked against Sheffield United. Sheffield United was the first game I remember seeing it, because there was a bit of pressure on us. For the first time this season, you're going to have the ball. What can you do? Because so far you've done well playing counter-attacking football. You're now playing Sheffield United at home. You've got the ball. What are you going to do? And his answer was to move Souček up the pitch, whereas previously we'd seen Ward-Prowse making the runs into the box and getting on the end of counter-attacks. He scored a couple of goals against Chelsea and Brighton, Liverpool.
Yeah.
He scored a few goals from counter-attacking. Against Sheffield United, I felt Ward-Prowse was deeper in a much more restricted role next to Alvarez rather than in front of. Souček was almost like a number 10. But it worked in that game. But then I feel like Moyes stuck with it. We came back after that international break and we stuck with it against the likes of Everton and Aston Villa, where Souček was actually quite far ahead of Ward-Prowse, who was next to Alvarez. At one point, I can't remember who we were playing now. It's frustrating me now. I've been remembering the team up because I complained about it a few times. It might have been a European game, Olympiacos. I'm not sure. Seen Alvarez.
The away game?
No, because Alvarez didn't start that one. He came on. Alvarez was pressing a centre-back. A centre-back had the ball, and Alvarez was there chasing him. And I thought, well, hang on a minute. Why is that guy there? Why is he in the other half at all? I feel against Nottingham Forest, we reverted back to the Alvarez playing centrally with Ward-Prowse and Souček sort of number 8s, and it worked. But I do agree with you. We switched around from it. I do like him in that central role rather than next to someone, because it impacts James Ward-Prowse as well. He's sort of Mark Noble with set pieces, really, isn't he? It sounds a bit harsh, but
no, but that's exactly what he is. I mean, what he has got, he's got one of the best right foots that you'll find. I mean, and I've made this argument before. Now Bowen's look, I would always rather win that midfield. So I would always rather sort of get the important players in the middle. You've got Ward-Prowse on the pitch in case we get a set piece, effectively, but he's also dangerous from open play as well. As you've said, if he gets a chance, there's a good chance he'll score. And we've seen in the European game that lovely little dink over the top to Paqueta. He's got he can be effective from open play if you get him further forward. What about sort of the Beckham role out wide? actually providing some delivery into the box. You haven't got to beat your fullback with a right foot like that. You could whip a ball in, on the right hand side. And while Bowen's not there anyway, I know that we play a counter-attacking game and he's got no pace, but you could imagine if in a setup, if you had James Ward-Prowse on the right-hand side, the minute that ball, imagine Aguirre switching the ball to the other side of the pitch, and rather than it landing on Soufal's foot, it lands on James Ward-Prowse's foot.
Yeah.
I think
I'm all for it in some games. In some games, I'm all for it. I think it was when we played Paqueta at home.
Yeah.
At half time, I wanted Ward-Prowse to be switched out over to the right-hand side because we were struggling. We were struggling to break them down. We had plenty of possession. Ings was playing up front at this point, and Ings was only getting involved when he dropped deep to get involved in the build-up. And I thought the guy would just swing the ball. Ings is good in the air. He's underrated in the air. And I thought get Ward-Prowse out wide, because at that point he was sort of playing outside their box, just knocking it sideways a little bit to Soufal. He'd get off him, give it to someone else, and so on and so forth. So I'm all in favour of utilising Ward-Prowse's crossing ability from open play.
I mean, the only issue you've got there is if you're playing against someone who's got a quick winger, he's not going to get back really in time and help Soufal. It's a very slow right-hand side, isn't it?
But this is where you do it in the right games, right environment. Even if it's just for 10 minutes in a game, you just want to start bombarding the area with crosses for whatever reason. If we're, the last 10 minutes against Nottingham Forest would have been a good example where we're on top, where we've got momentum, we've pushed them back. They're sitting in their box now. We're up against a low block side. What can we do? Actually, sometimes just having Ward-Prowse whip it into Antonio and Bowen, who's somehow turned into Peter Crouch with his heading this season. But getting him whipping the ball in, I'm not against it, Nick. I'm not against that one at all. So
no. I mean, it is difficult. I mean, what are your thoughts on James Ward-Prowse on the whole? I mean, because for me, I think the stats are great, assists, goals, but as a player in the team, does he, apart from it sounds mad, apart from the goals and the assists, do you think he really improves West Ham as a team, the way we play?
I actually do. I think he improves the team. He's sort of like Barley set pieces. He's sort of jack of all trades, master of none. Do you know what I mean? He took his set pieces away. He's not the most creative player. He's not the best at tackling. He's not the fastest player. I mean, he's not the best at anything in the starting 11 bar set pieces. And like I said, I'm playing that down. But I do think you need players like that. The only problem I would say is that you've got a bit of that with Souček to some extent as well, and I've got an issue with them as a partnership. When Alvarez
this is my problem.
is unavailable, I have a huge issue. I have a huge issue with them too. I don't think Ward-Prowse is strong enough defensively to play in a pairing in midfield. He needs somebody behind him. I think sometimes I'd like to see him take more responsibility. I think often when we're doing a slow build up from the back, Alvarez will go and get it from the centre backs, and I find that Ward-Prowse can sometimes he'd be a little bit too happy to allow Alvarez to be the player that goes and does it. And I just wish he'd move a little bit more and get on the ball because he's got the ability. Whereas it's going to sound a bit harsh, but I don't mind Souček not doing it. I'd like him to. But
I'm the same as you.
I get anxiety. If someone passes the ball to Souček and he's got someone behind him, I panic a bit. I think, oh no. When it goes to Ward-Prowse, I've got no worries at all. I know he's not going to lose it. His pass success rate's really high. And I know it's sideways and backwards, but sometimes you need that to create the space for like Paqueta to drop into and to move the ball from one side of the pitch to the other. You just need a little bit of simple play. So he's really good on the ball. I think I'm a fan of Ward-Prowse, and I think it's working well so far. He's had some poor games, but I do think those games have come from whenever either A, Alvarez is not there, or B, he's playing directly next to Alvarez rather than slightly in front of Alvarez. And I do think that impacts Ward-Prowse massively. So far, so good for me, Nick. But I think we've seen the best and the worst of Ward-Prowse already, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
I think we've seen him have a stinker. We've seen him be man of match. And I think that's what we're going to get throughout his West Ham career,
I think The Athletic wrote an article on this, didn't they? And they kind of, they framed it perfectly. They said he's both one of the best players and the worst players in the Premier League. And they kind of said he doesn't help you control a game, but he can win you a game. He's kind of, and they said he's the type of player that he's a luxury, but he's a luxury worth having. Whereas, like you just said there, we kind of carry Souček because of his aerial threat. I'd be happy with and I'm not happy with that, but I would be happy with us carrying somebody like James Ward-Prowse because he's technical. My only concern with James Ward-Prowse is if, depending on the direction that we're going in the summer with a different type of manager, I think if you do get a progressive guy, someone that comes in and plays a progressive attacking, pressing style, I don't think James Ward-Prowse gets in that team.
I don't know. I think he might. I think he could. I always use Postecoglou as my rule of thumb. Could Ward-Prowse play for Ange Postecoglou? Yeah, I think he could. I think he'd be all right under him as a manager because, if anything, I think if you get this really attacking manager, say, he wouldn't ask Ward-Prowse to do the creative side of it. His job would be to get it to Kudus, to Bowen, Paqueta, and let them do the attack. And Ward-Prowse is capable of that. He needs to do it more. I wish he would do it more because he's bloody good on the ball. And I think sometimes he just plays a little bit too safe. But I think sometimes that's got to be instruction. He has done it all his career at Southampton as well under various different managers. But yeah, I'm a fan of it. I think this is why they let Moyes have James Ward-Prowse.
Right.
Because they thought,
They could reutilise him later on.
Yeah. If we go get a manager that has that progressive side to him, could he utilise Ward-Prowse? Probably. Could he utilise Palhinha and Fulham? Maybe not. What about Scott McTominay? Probably not. Okay, well, we'll leave them ones, but he can have his Ward-Prowse because he might work under a different manager going forward, and we probably wouldn't have to sell him. That's my own theory anyway. I think they've maybe done. That's why they've allowed Moyes to have James Ward-Prowse.
If you had the pick of the two Moyes signings in that, or the targets in that area, James Ward-Prowse and McTominay, who would you have chosen?
McTominay.
No. He would have been more. He would have been more suited because at least he's big and he's got an engine and he's athletic. Do you know what I mean? I think he.
But McTominay would be my replacement for Souček.
Ah, right, okay.
Because what Souček offers, that late runs into box, the heading ability, McTominay has that as well.
Do you think he would have replaced Souček?
I like to think so, because I think he's almost like a better version of Souček. But this is where, before people shout at me about Man United, I'm talking about Scotland's McTominay. Scotland's McTominay, Man United McTominay, the two completely different players. The role he's got for Scotland is hugely different. He's been one of the top goal scorers for the qualifiers for the Euros. He scores pretty much every game for Scotland at the minute. He's getting in the box late. His finishing's fantastic. His build-up play is really good. And defensively, he's all right. Man, you keep playing him in the defensive role. He's not the best defensively, but I think he's better than Souček. He's tackling and whatever. He's got that little bit of rough side to him, which he gets off with because he's a Man U player. But when people use that against him, whenever I've done videos saying I would love McTominay at West Ham, people say, yeah, but he gets away with a lot of Man U. I think, but he doesn't have that protection for Scotland, and he's fine. No. And you can't possibly say he gets away with it for Scotland because he's playing for Scotland. I accept it for Man U, right? I accept that, right? But there's no way in hell Scotland get passes from officials when we're playing the likes of Spain.
No.
But yeah, I love McTominay. I'm a massive fan of him. I really am. Would have loved him at West Ham. And I think a three of Alvarez, Ward-Prowse and McTominay would have that would have been David Moyes' wet dream, probably. But I think it would have been very, very efficient. But it's also the players we could have utilised going forward more.
Yeah, see, my preference would have been Fofana, Paqueta, and Alvarez. That three.
Lots of people want him. I've not seen him, Nick. I couldn't. I don't watch French football, so I can't really.
He's impressive. You've only got to watch him in that game at the Emirates. He got man of the match for Monaco that night. That was a night where Moyes and Stuyton were watching him as well. He couldn't have had a better game.
Still wasn't enough to.
No, he couldn't have had a better game. But I think that kind of gives you a bit of insight into what we're going to have moving forward. So I think in the future, I do think if you're talking about Postecoglou, that style, you need fit, aggressive players because out of possession, you hunt in packs.
Yeah.
So you do need that, and that's spells the end for a lot of West Ham players, doesn't it? Long term.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at it, quickly going through it, Soufal, you're out. Zuma, you're out. All you have to do is look at Tottenham's high line against Chelsea when they're 9 men. They were literally all 9 players, 8 player outfielders were literally stood on the halfway line. There was nobody in front of it or behind it. They were all on a line going, go on then, knock over the top, and we'll all run after it and see what happens. But Zuma wouldn't be able to play it. Soufal wouldn't be able to play it. I think Ward-Prowse would. He's quite slow, Ward-Prowse, but he's very athletic. He's very fit. He can go for 90 minutes, so he'll be fine. Alvarez would be fine. I think Paqueta would be fine. Bowen would love it. I think Bowen would really come into his own. I think Kudus, I've seen plenty from him at Ajax and so far at West Ham. I think Benrahma would be done. I think he'd... Yeah.
It's time, isn't it?
Enough.
It's time for Benny, I think, now. I think we do need to... We've already kind of replaced him with Paqueta on that side, but I think he needs moving on now, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think ASAP, to be honest with you. I think there's quite a few of them that need moved on, but he's someone that actually has a bit of market value to him. We speak about, Soufal. He's probably going to get a new contract, Soufal, but I'm okay with that as long as he's sort of second choice right back next season. Someone comes in to replace him. I'm hoping Soufal is almost like Ben Johnson's replacement to some extent, but the difference with him and Fornals, for example, compared to Benrahma is we could actually get money for Benrahma. It will be, I think, if you sold him in the summer, you might have got your money back, but I don't think you'll get that anymore. What do you reckon? You get 10, 15 million maybe for him or something.
I know.
And his value's probably depreciating every month or two, so it's not going to be a
Would you like to see something of Cornet at least? Would you like to see him started in a game?
Nick, I was a massive fan of Cornet when we signed him, right? And I was doing
until we all make our decision on him, I think we need to see him, don't we? At least.
When we make our content, you know what it's like. You rate the transfer window, rate the transfers and stuff. And when we signed Cornet, I was getting like a 9 out of 10 or something. I thought, what's not to like? He's Premier League proven, scored goals in a relegated Burnley side, can play left mid, left wing back, can play left back. He's done it for Lyon, can play striker, can play on the right. He can cover half the positions. He's fast, he's tricky, he's capable. He's got the X factor. He can score a goal without any help from someone else. 17.5 million, good age. I thought this is like ticking all the boxes. Its only issue was at Burnley, if he wasn't 100% fit, he wouldn't play. He didn't want to play if he wasn't 100%. Yeah. So that was the only thing, which is weird for David Moyes with the Moyes MOT test. A bit of a strange purchase for Moyes, given that Cornet won't run through a brick wall for him like Thomas Souček and Vladimir Coufal would. But I was excited. I say it's been a disaster. It's been a disaster of a transfer, but I don't blame Cornet. I think he's not had a chance. You know, I hate the phrase, you know, when players come back from injury, it's like a new signing. I hate that phrase. I'll tell you what, Cornet would be like a new signing because he is a bloody new signing.
He would be.
A year and a half later, he would be a new signing. Hey, finally, we're getting to see him.
People forget the goal that he scored against Chelsea that was wrongly disallowed. I mean, I often think, you know, if that hadn't have happened, you know, what might have been, you know, because I think it does matter sometimes for some players how they start. They've got to hit the ground running, haven't they? And I know he went and got the injury afterwards, but I think that would have been important. I mean, that was a great goal, and the show reel for Cornet popped up on my Facebook feed last week. Mate, I didn't realise. Mate, right foot, left foot, he's
volleys,
lethal.
Free kick from 30 yards.
Yeah.
Do you know the best one about that clip with the fourth goal? He did his run. He's always offside at West Ham.
Yeah.
And I've always defended him. I was like, it's not him. It's the pass. It's not always the pass, but sometimes the pass is just late. The players should play it. They take a second. By the time they do play it, Cornet's now a yard behind the defender. He's offside. Yeah. But that last clip, I was watching the clip of you've seen the 3 goals. The fourth one, Cornet makes a run behind and McNeil plays it to him. I'm like, there it is. Proof. This is what I'm talking about. If you play it to him soon enough, he's an own goal. I would love to see him.
But what people don't realise is these players, he's so fast. And when you play on the shoulder of the last defender, it isn't always that you're making it's not always, you're not always the reason why you're offside. It's because a pass has been delayed. And sometimes it could be the case that he doesn't get many minutes. He could be trying too hard, you know, rusty. So I don't think he is crap like people call him. I'd like to look. We don't know how the injuries affected him. You know, it could have really kind of it could have done him some damage. But we saw him in a European game, though, didn't we? Was it against Olympiacos?
Well, this was a problem. You would have got this on your channel. So that night, Cornet came on with 5-10 minutes to go, and Mubama came on with 5 minutes to go. And people said, "Oh, was this David Moyes just being David Moyes and putting him on for like as if to see I will play Cornet Mubama kind of thing against Olympiacos?" And I was a bit reluctant to believe that. I was like, "Nah, maybe this is like his second and third choice subs. Maybe he's realising he's got to give these 2 players a chance."
Yeah.
And then we played Nottingham Forest on the Sunday, and both those players weren't even on the bench. And I thought, okay, well, there you go then. It was token gesture subs then, because they weren't even on the bench. They went from sub number 2 and 3, because we brought Antonio on first, didn't we? No, we didn't. We did another sub. Was it Such? I don't know. Substitute 2 was Cornet, and substitute 3 was Mubama. Then I think we pissed around with Craswell or something. And I was like, no, it's not token gesture subs. It can't be. You wouldn't do that. And then they weren't even on the bench against Forest. And I thought, okay, I can't argue against it now. I've got literally no evidence. So it's just a really sad situation to be in. And if fans feel like it was a token gesture, I'm pretty certain Bam and Cornet will feel like it's they would have probably come on thinking, what's the point? Team comes up against Forest, I'm not even on the bench. You're probably going, well, what's the point then? What
do you think is going to happen? Just put your David Moyes hat on. Well, a hybrid hat. Yourself and the David Moyes part is Souček and obviously James Ward-Prowse are going to be in that team. But remove, we'll say Kudus is playing, remove Antonio and Bowen. What are we doing against Burnley?
I reckon he goes Benrahma left, Paqueta through the middle.
Okay.
What do you think?
That's not a bad shout. It doesn't.
I think that's what he would do.
It doesn't leave us much from deep, though, does it? In terms of sort of creativity, are we just going to go from back to front? Just bypass the midfield.
Possibly, but we'll be able to, because Burnley play quite expansive. We will actually be able to bypass the midfield.
Right. Okay.
Do you know what I mean? We can sit in, sit deep, get a ball, and get it out to Kudus and Benrahma, and hopefully go on the counter attack with Paqueta as well. I think that would be my guess. It's either that or Ings up front and Paqueta stays out on the left.
Where is Midfield in the pecking order? If you're David Moyes, do you reckon?
He'll get on the bench, but he won't come off the bench.
No.
I think that's...
Is he behind Ings and Cornet, would you say, Midfield?
Not Cornet. I think he's behind Ings, but not... But the problem is, I think Bowen's in front of Ings, and I think Paqueta might be as well. So
yeah,
I think he's maybe fifth choice striker at the minute.
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't send him out on loan, Midfield. Even if it was just for 6 months, a 6-month loan, you know, to give you some sort of idea what sort of contracts. Because from the board's perspective, I would be fuming with Moyes, because you've got this young talent. You don't know, you never know. Regardless of how well they do in the under-21s, you don't know whether that's going to transition, whether they will click at the top flight. So he wants a new contract. He's got a new agent. I'd be like, Dave, please give him some minutes so I know what I'm working with here. Because you want to know what he's worth, what his potential is. You will get a feel for it, wouldn't you? If you saw him, 5 times, 20-minute stints at the end of games, you'd have half an idea.
The only counteract this, I've got the same thought process as you. We've got the same opinion on this, but the only thing that's I'm playing my own devil's advocate here. The only thing that counters my opinion is it's come out from ex-West Ham employee, and David Moyes has said it, which was we offered Midfield a contract 12 months ago. We've been negotiating with him for 12 months. So that goes obviously to before the summer transfer window. So I've always thought Midfield won't sign a new deal because of lack of game time this season, because last season he maybe should have got more minutes. There was opportunities to give him minutes, but generally speaking, Antonio was fit for the whole season. Ings came in, and we had Skamaka for the first half of the season. So I always thought, he'd only just turned 18 as well. So to expect minutes when you've just turned 18, as he did a year ago, I think that's a bit much. I think, hang on a minute, you've got to wait your time, kind of thing. So if he has been rejecting a contract all of last season, I find it hard to pin it on just game time, if that makes sense. But then, like you said, why would they not send him out on loan? And when he's getting minutes somewhere, say, right now you can sign this contract because you're out playing football, etc.
Exactly.
I think there's more to it than meets the eye with this one. I don't think Moyes is blameless.
But don't you think West Ham as a club, we always do this? We come out publicly and say we've offered them money, and they've said no.
Oh yeah,
we do it with every single player.
It's
like public pressure. So now, obviously, we've got a statement from Moyes, so he's jumping in on the act now. So it's wrong. It should be kept behind closed doors. It's nobody else's business, I
absolutely hate it.
And that's what makes me think it's lies as well, to a degree, because I think they're just playing a game.
Well, it's Ben Johnson, isn't it? He's not signing a new deal. A month ago, maybe his contract offer was on Claret and Hugh for everyone to see, or his contract demands was on Claret and Hugh for everyone to see. The club do it with every single player. I mean, we did it with Declan Rice. David Silver went on TalkSport and said, we've offered him $200,000 a week. He won't sign it. Yeah, because it's an 8-year contract, you numpty. If you give him a 3-year contract on $200,000 a week, and he might accept it. Put a release clause in there as well, and he might happily. But it's the 8-year thing he doesn't want. But we do it with any player that won't sign a deal at West Ham. The contract, very specifically, the actual wage, etc., gets leaked one way or another, and it's an ugly thing. And I know he doesn't play for West Ham now. I know the parent of one of the. I've said it a few times. I'll say it once more. I know one of the parents that used to be his player. His son was a player at the under-23s, as it was, and he got offered a contract at West Ham, and he didn't accept it. Now, he was willing to accept a contract, and he wanted to sign a new deal with West Ham. He just rejected the one that was offered to him. And he felt that the relationship between his son and the club was good, and between he and the club was good. And there wasn't an agent; they didn't have an agent. His dad was involved in the negotiations and that. So they felt, West Ham will come back with a second offer, and we'll maybe accept that one. So by the end of the week, his contract in detail was on Claret Booze. I say this player has accepted this, and his dad went, "Well, fuck off! I'm not signing. My son will not be signing for your club." Yeah. So he was waiting for a second contract offer to come along, which they were hoping would be better, and he'd sign it. But the contract went up, and he got pissed off. And now, for context, the player hasn't gone on to achieve anything. He's not a player that we look at and go, "Oh, if only." But that's not the point here. The point is that we leak the contract offers on very public domains for the world to see, to turn the fan base against the player. That's what the intention is. It does work. It works
every single time. Greedy player. It's not Midfield he's not signing his contract. It isn't because he's worried about his pathway into the first team. It's because he's a greedy shit, and he wants more money elsewhere. That's kind of the image that they paint.
Listen, it's possible he has been a greedy so-and-so, but it's possible that it's a combination of no game time and wants too much money for his game time. But this is the whole problem. West Ham are probably offering him a contract based on him not playing any minutes. We're saying, well, here's your contract for us. You've played no minutes in the first team. Here's a contract to showcase that you're fifth choice striker at West Ham. And Mubama's probably sitting there thinking, but I should be playing minutes, so I want the wage to reflect that I'm a squad player. I'm a third choice striker at West Ham.
I'm a West Ham fan, as you know. My son, if he was Midfield at the moment, I would be advising him to wait until the end of the season. I'd be like, don't sign anything yet, because the most important thing for a player is to play football.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Absolutely is. I mean, Declan Rice, I've said it before. For if he hadn't have played men's football from the age of 18. He weren't world class when he first came in. He was a good player that made mistakes. But he was persisted with, positions changed, and he was an ever-present. That development that you get between the age of 18 and 20, if you don't have that and you just kind of exist in the reserves and don't go out on loan, Declan Rice never turns into Declan Rice. Do you know what I mean? If he just if he just sits where he was. So I think it's so important, and it's almost negligent of the club, because we've got no reserve football anymore. I think surely you should know by the time a player gets to 18 or 19, you should be kind of making a decision about them. You should be, to have all of those kids in sort of the under 21s. I mean, Nathan Trott, he's 25 now. I didn't even realise he was 25.
But 25. Goalkeepers are a little bit different, aren't they?
I know. But Josh Cullen, what we did to him, I mean, his career only really got going when he was, 24, 25?
Yeah. But hey ho. We'll start wrapping this one up, Nick. I just want to say, I think there's a lot to look forward to. I get it. Yes. Football's not the best. I'm not the biggest fan of Moyes, despite what some people believe, and I'm not the biggest hater of Moyes, despite what some people believe. I think I've always summarised Moyes. When he's getting results, I can stomach it. But as soon as results stop, I have a problem, because the football's not good enough to appease me. When the results can, but while they stop, that's when it becomes a bit of a problem. But I think between now and the end of the season, I hope for a trophy, truth be told. Maybe I'm being a bit stupid, but I have hopes that we can maybe win a bit of silverware this season and finish 8th. I think it's a realistic target. I think we're still on. We're 9th at the minute.
Yeah.
And we need a bit of luck so that 8th becomes Conference League football next season. But my hope is that we can win a bit of silverware, finish 8th, and we're well on course to do that at the minute. We're still in all the cup competitions. Even better, we're in the knockouts of the European football. Is football the best? Hell no, and I'm never going to claim it is. But I'll tell you what, the second half against Nottingham Forest, I know you weren't the biggest fan of it. I enjoyed it, Nick. I did. I thought the football was good.
For the last 20 minutes,
I enjoyed the whole half of it. We came out. Kudus had a couple of shots early on. Emerson had a shot, and 2-1 down to win 3-2 in the last minute. That's you want entertainment, Nick. That is entertainment. Just
to close my thoughts up on it, you're right. We've still got so much to play for this season. We have, we're still within touching distance of the top 6. We're still in the EFL Cup, and yes, this is all down to Moyes. We're still in the Europa Conference League as well. But I can see blatant issues with the way that we're playing, the way that we're setting up. I don't think it's going to go very well, and I think that come Christmas time we could be out of the EFL Cup. Obviously, we're still going to be in the next Europe, but if it goes wrong, a lot of people will be wishing that we had changed and at least given ourselves a chance. Do you know what I mean? The same way as if it goes well towards the end of the year, you'll be going, haha, see, I told you, you know. But the thing is, at the moment, there is so much to play for. He's not here for the long term. We know that. And I just feel like if you're going to make a change, why not just make a change rather than go half-assed at it?
The one thing I will concede, though, is without making a change and giving Moyes the opportunity to win a trophy, there's a danger that, well, what are you going to do if he does win a trophy? What happens if he does win the Carabao Cup? Because
he'll stay again next season, and
that's my point. If they do have a plan, which is to replace him in the summer, they're taking a risk in the sense that Moyes might actually do something which makes it difficult. Because I think they probably did look to replace him, and then we won the Conference League and thought, oh, we can't get rid of a guy who's just won a trophy. How's that going to look?
I mean, he is a good knockout manager. Now he kind of seems to have, you know, I think the way he plays football, which is very sort of cagey, it's good for one-off games.
Yeah,
you know.
It's not entertaining, but this is where Cup's not about entertainment. Cup football is about getting your name to the next round. That's all it's about. It doesn't really matter how you get there. Fingers crossed we can keep doing it. But Nick, thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Lovely. Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me on.
And if you've enjoyed this, please do drop a like, subscribe to Hammer Chat. Also, I'm sure you're aware where Nick's from, but if not, he's from a YouTube channel called Claret Booze. I'll put a link to the channel in the description below, and his latest video will be on your screen in approximately 4 seconds' time. For myself and Nick, I'll catch you in a bit.
See you later.